welcome to Tea Time Theology. My name is Taylor Wilkie, and we are broadcasting live from the brand new...
But we're not live.
You're right. But we're from the new Tea Time Theology studios with Joan Daly music room.
Don't be mean to Joan Daly. She's so wonderful.
I'm not. We're broadcasting live from the Joan Daly music room at the church at St. David's on the Hill in Cranston. This is our new studio.
Yes.
And we are so happy. Ivy, are you saying you're so happy?
I am.
I am so happy that Drake was the first person that we could get to record in this studio.
I'm the first?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That's why we're talking about how we need a new table.
And it's because we wanted you to be the first person here, not because you were the first person we scheduled.
Or said yes to our emails.
Of course. Yes. I feel very special after hearing that. Glad to be back.
So we have a permanent home now.
Yes.
And I believe St. David's has services on
probably Sunday.
Saturdays.
Saturdays.
Yeah, this is I know, scandalous.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, they're I believe they're a parish without a permanent rector.
No, he's permanent, but it's Ed Boudreaux. So he's at like three churches.
Yes.
And they have a thrift store downstairs.
Yeah, I came to collect my key. And while I was coming they said the secretary's going to be there, and when I was bringing it in, there was someone unloading a lot of clothes from a truck into the building, and I just started helping. And it's really fun when you go to a church and like there's people doing things, and you just show up, you start doing things with them.
Oh my God.
Nobody asks you questions.
Absolutely.
Oh, no.
I always say that any church kitchen is my church kitchen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We love free labor in the church.
Yes.
We're continuing our pop culture-esque theme, and I think this is probably going to be the thing going forward, guys. We tried the highbrow smart stuff. We tried the lowbrow dumb stuff. We tried the talk about ministries. It was all really hard. It was a lot hard. It was really hard.
A lot of reading.
And it's not talking about it that's hard. It's not the talking about the things. It's getting the people to come to talk about the thing that they want to talk about.
Yeah.
So we've decided that we're just going to do TV shows and movies from now on.
And books.
And books.
There's a lot of books this season.
And we have returning, like I said, Drake Douglas.
What's up?
And we are continuing. Last season, Drake did the majority of the episodes for Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1. And we're back talking about Star Trek V, The Undiscovered Country. No, Final Frontier. Hold on. Star Trek 6, The Final Frontier.
Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier. So should we tell them what happened?
Yes.
We're doing this a couple weeks late because I thought it was Star Trek 6 and I watched the wrong movie. And then half an hour before we were supposed to record, I went, we could probably talk about this, but this seems like a stretch. And it turns out, in fact.
Drake got to the end of the movie.
And then I thought...
Before he realized this is probably not the right movie.
Well, I will say, with this specific movie, I got 30 minutes in before I felt confident that it was the correct one.
Yes.
I was like, what is happening here?
Isn't it right off the bat with the Cybok in the desert and the guy?
I thought it was very... very on the nose. But we'll talk about that.
But then he's on the mountain, and then I was like, I don't... But you also have to remember that I didn't know who any of these people were coming in.
But you did, Ivy.
But I didn't. I only watched Strange New Worlds.
Plot twist. Remember the episode of Strange New Worlds with the pirates?
Yes.
Okay, so the person they were trying to get out of the Vulcan prison camp?
Yes, I know that.
That's Cybok.
Yes, but I knew nothing besides the weird shot they had of him at the end.
Well, that and this are the only two times Cybok was mentioned.
Okay, so that's disappointing because he seemed interesting.
He's very interesting.
Yes.
I feel like we could have had more with him.
I know, there's so much more. But he's dead, and we saw the beginning of his story and the end.
That's the entire...
Yeah.
Do they do that a lot in Star Trek? Just drop a random really important character and then kill them off fast?
Yeah. Drama.
Yeah, Ensign No Name from the latest season of Strange New Worlds. He shows up and he's that nurse, and they didn't give him a name, and then all of a sudden he's going on an away mission and he still didn't have a name, and I went, oh no, Ensign No Name.
Oh no.
They made us really love him, and then they killed him, and then he became the villain. Anyway, so we're talking about Star Trek V, and in it's famously the worst Star Trek movie.
Says who?
Says
everybody.
Mostly.
Why?
That's a bummer.
Well, you haven't seen the others.
I really liked it.
It is a good movie, I think, in a vacuum. But when you look at them as a...
Yeah, I can see
Well,
that.
I could say, like, structurally, it did bounce around a lot.
It's hard to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we're talking about it because this is the theological podcast, and that's the most theologically relevant Star Trek.
That sure is.
Sure.
Yeah. So just in case folks who are listening haven't watched the movie already and aren't familiar, the story centers around Spock's brother. Surprise, Spock has a brother, if you haven't. Just like surprise, Spock has a half-sister, or like an adopted sister that we didn't hear about. Yeah, Michael Burnham in Star Trek Discovery.
Yes.
I love that you say that. Like, I've watched any of that.
I know, we talked a lot about this, and it's like, I was all like, what's Star Trek?
Like, I don't know.
And Cybok is on a is on a
Quest.
A quest. Or I would say maybe even a crusade.
I think so. I think
okay.
that's fair.
I'll give him a crusade.
Right? Yeah. He's on a crusade to find the planet Shakari, which is known as a promised paradise, where he believes God or the divine or some divine being that created everything lives.
Mm-hmm.
The first mover, we might say. And he's on the quest. I mean, he says it. He kind of encapsulates it as, this. The point of this is not necessarily just to meet God, but to gain ultimate knowledge. This is really kind of like the function of figuring out where God resides and where like creation comes from. Is there's like, it's very much a that was actually one of the first things that I noticed, even beyond the whole like, oh my gosh, we think there's a God and there's a real like corporeal planet, but there was this very very laser focus on knowledge, on something very very critical about ultimate knowledge, and that being sort of the pinnacle of existence is gaining a certain kind of knowledge and a kind of like ultimate knowledge, which we can get into later, is very 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 popular throughout Christian history, right?
Yes.
We have people who very quickly after the early church get very very obsessed with this idea of salvation being knowledge based, in the quest for, and so Cybok really does actually embody a lot of our faith's history in a way. Yeah.
Okay.
Is anyone else hearing this background noise? Or is
Yeah.
it just me? Okay.
Yeah. We're this is like
I just wanna make
state
sure.
of the art.
It's the heat. It's the heat. The heat's on.
Oh, it's the heat.
Yeah. So we could be cold and quiet, or warm and loud.
I have one note that I wrote down that has absolutely nothing to do theologically, but I don't understand why they keep making the Klingons the villains if they're also going to make them the coolest looking people in the entire show. He comes in that like leather vest with his hair teased out, and I'm like, he should be the hero. Why are we dealing with these other people? Like, guys, why are the villains always the coolest dressed?
I don't know.
Me either. But I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, the Klingons are. They say they're, and it's interesting how in this film there are no Klingons die. Usually they say like if there's a Klingon in a Star Trek movie, they're gonna die.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're there for. They're cannon fodder for that's the ship that the Enterprise is gonna blow up in that film.
Poor guys.
Well, they find a lot of honor in death as a species.
They do.
So I think they probably aren't so upset about it.
That's good.
No, which is, I don't know. I guess now that I'm thinking about it, why were the Klingons even
In this movie?
in this
I have
movie at all?
absolutely no idea where they were
I
in the
couldn't
movie.
figure it out.
Did they
Like, he was just there to serve a good luck and leave. Like, that was about it.
I don't even think there was like a at the end of the film when they're in the command lounge or the officers lounge, which is gorgeous.
It's really cool.
By the way, the one with the big wooden wheel.
So fun.
I'm like, oh, I love that room. I'm like, if I won the lottery, I wouldn't tell anybody, but there'd be signs, and that's one of them.
Wait, wasn't the Klingon who got, which one was it?
General Kang.
No. He got, the captain off the false world. So they were really just there for their beams.
Yeah, they had a working transporter.
That's why they were there.
Someone had to rescue them.
Yeah, and it was Spock.
Yes.
Star Trek, or AKA Star Trek Jesus.
Yes.
Speaking, well, we're going off the rails. There'll be plenty of time for that.
I don't
later.
think we've been on them yet.
I know. So Cybok. Let's talk about Cybok.
Yes.
As a false prophet or messianic figure. What? First of all, full transparency. This is the first time I've used AI to make notes on something.
Yeah.
So if it sounds like I ask a question I should already know the answer to, it's because I didn't read my own notes because the AI made them.
Yes.
What is a messianic figure? Do we know?
I have an idea. So, I mean, it's not a depending how you ask. Throughout history, messiahs have been seen as individuals who will deliver a people from some kind of oppression or some kind of trouble. So when we kind of look in our Christian capacity and therefore a Jewish capacity, the promise of a Messiah, which we see all the way back through the Old Testament, and this is what we hear a lot of, prophecy in the prophet Isaiah, and those tend to be the ones that are more known to people, especially the stuff we hear around Christmas, things like that. This idea of a figure coming and saving people in the beginning was a very worldly and sort of physical reality, insofar as they were looking for someone to save them from the current condition of their real life, not this big spiritual sort of idea that we now see in Jesus as a Messiah for the salvation of our souls, beyond other things too. The Jewish people were oppressed really forever, even before we knew them as Jews. I mean, someone was kind of always kind of putting their foot down on them and pushing them into the ground. And so the identity, the messianic identity, or the promise of a Messiah, especially for the Jews, is sort of inextricable from their history and from their story. The understanding, though, would be that because it was like a worldly kind of rescue, that this Messiah would probably come about as like a military figure, someone who would come and at least in like Jesus's time or right around that time, someone who was going to go and like kick Rome out, right? They were going to come and overthrow this oppressive empire and free people and put them sort of back into like a healthy and thriving and safe world. Obviously, Jesus comes in a very different way. And part of the reason, we hear things like in the epistles and Paul's letters about sort of like the foolishness of the cross and like the folly of the cross, we hear a lot, is because this idea of a Messiah dying in order to fulfill that salvation mission is complete nonsense in the traditional sense. So Cybok is a really interesting, I saw him as a really interesting, almost like combination of these two extremes, right? He has this very spiritual element, this sort of I am seeking this this greater truth, this ultimate being, this ultimate, and want some kind of union. We don't really understand, or at least I didn't quite get, what Cybok was planning to do with this knowledge, other than just have it, which again feels a lot like Christian history, but
isn't that like Vulcan's whole thing is just to have knowledge?
That's a good.
Sorry, well, I may have painted that too broad.
No.
I think that's actually a good point. It would be he's really sort of broken out of his Vulcan mode in a lot of ways, but it would make sense, right, that he would still see knowledge as a very, very powerful and important thing. But him as this messianic figure does kind of occupy this middle space when we think about our understanding of it, both in the traditional Jewish capacity and then as Jesus, because he's not afraid to get a little violent. right? So there is that edge of like, we're going to do this and we're going to make sure it happens one way or the other. And if it costs something, then so be it, right? At the same time, he is in a way that I still don't quite understand, saving people from their pain. And all the times that he takes it away from them, and there's that, and so it's a really interesting treatment of this whole idea of what a Messiah is, what it's for, who it's for, and sort of how it happens. I think they did a really interesting, maybe without intending to, sort of. They really encapsulated a lot in how he occupies that role.
Yeah, going back to what you were saying about. Like the promise of a Messiah and the Messiah coming and being someone who was going to like kick ass and take names. Like that's kind of like the promise that John the Baptist was kind of preaching. Like John the Baptist was like this hype, like was the hype man for Jesus, and he was like he's gonna come and he's gonna change everything and nothing will be the same and we won't be enslaved anymore and it's all gonna be cool. And then Jesus shows up and it's like, no guys.
Well, and it's true, except for it's true in a very unexpected way, right? Which is like the coolest thing about Jesus, I think. Well, he has several cool things, but one definitely up there for me.
One of the things you also mentioned was Cybok's whole deal is, and this is another thing that I don't understand about this movie, and there's a lot of things not to understand about this movie.
There's like so many choices being made.
And one of those things is Cybok says like let me take away your pain, and he does some kind of like something. I don't know what it is.
Isn't it the mind meld?
It's some kind of Vulcan. Vulcans are telepathic and can absolutely influence people emotionally. I cannot think of another time in the franchise where it's that extreme though, where a Vulcan goes and basically just like sucks all of the bad feelings out of somebody. In a very quick and creative way. But that was my guess, is that he's just leaning on some kind of different Vulcan power there.
Yeah, like mind meld has always been like touch. You got to touch for mind meld. Like, and he doesn't seem to be
specifically on the face
grabbing. He doesn't seem to be touching anybody at any time. But anyway, so he says, "Let me take away your pain." And one of the questions I have is for Drake anyway, is what are the dangers? Like, I've talked to other clergy in the past, and they've said that one of the great taglines that I love about the Episcopal Church is God is love, come as you are. That's one of the things I really like, and I was challenged on that a couple of seasons back by, I can't remember the guest's name, but they said, yes, God is love, come as you are, but expect to be changed by being here.
Oh yeah, I don't remember who said that either. It was
and Benjamin Straley, I think that's who said it. So, and Cybok seems to be offering a very easy path to salvation. What are the dangers of a pain-free salvation in, Drake, your opinion, or even Ivy, in your opinion?
I'd love to hear your opinions before I dive in. I have some very strong ones.
I think what is fascinating about how Cybok works is twofold. One is it offers this like easy way, but we watch him do this like process on bones.
Bones, yeah.
And it looks painful. And it seems like you have to go through a worse pain before you can like be pain-free. Which I think is a very like Christian ideal in a lot of ways, in like a weird kind of sense. And then I also think I'm actually going to push back on something you said, that he isn't afraid of violence, because when he finds out people are getting hurt, he gets mad.
That's fair.
And that's the first time
Yep.
we've seen him kind of lose his cool in the episode, is he's like, that's not how this is supposed to be. So I do
good point.
think that, like, he's not looking to do violence in any sort of way. And he always asks people consent, which I find always fascinating with the villain, when they're like, I'm gonna murder you, but I'm gonna, like, ask you first. And, like, with those three things, the idea of a pain-free salvation, I think, is what most people want, but I think in a really Christian way. He's not really saying he's gonna take your pain away. It's that he's gonna walk with you in that pain, and then you just get your resolution faster than, like, we can expect from a priest, because our priests aren't Vulcans and can't actually, like, mind meld you. But, like,
It would be so much easier if we could.
exactly. And like, you're only limited by your humanity. But, like, genuinely.
Do better, Drake.
I need to work on it.
But I do think, like, what's interesting is that the end result is what we are being offered every Sunday in church. They just get it faster because of the sci-fi element. Did I answer the question?
Yes, and it is an absolutely fascinating take on it, because it is, it makes perfect sense how you say it, and I saw it almost completely the opposite way.
Great. Love that.
Because I think
Yeah.
by the nature of what it is, right? So I saw it very much as this sort of like manipulative kind of technique for him to gather a following, right? So it doesn't mean that everything he did was necessarily untrue, right? Or that there isn't a really important, deeply Christian idea. I think exactly what you said, this idea that, God never promises to take our pain away, right? God, if anything, promises anything about pain, it is to transform it, right, into something else. And so that was like my first like theological red flag, was like, oh, this isn't how pain works. You're 100% right. It's what most people, I think, would prefer, myself included sometimes, and even though, Kirk can be just absolutely insufferable to me sometimes, in how cavalier he is and just sort of, punchy and all these things. But his whole point when he says like, I need my pain, I need it. It's and I think there's of course sort of an extreme of that is also unhealthy and unhelpful and not what God wants for us either. But if you think about it, like this functionality of pain in our human condition is actually deeply, deeply tied to one of the most fundamental theological ideas we have, which is the incarnation, right? God did not need to suffer to be God, right? There's no, God can do whatever God wants, right? God can exist and make whatever God wants. By nature of the incarnation, of God becoming a person and becoming one of us and suffering Christ's life and suffering, his passion, is the proof that God is in this with us to do something about our pain by coming into it, God's self, right? Not to take it away, but actually to enter into it quite literally and physically, and to do something with it, to sanctify it, if you even want to go, to make something holy, even if it's hard. So Cybok is in a way, it kind of reminded me of kind of what I would consider like sloppy megachurchy theology, right? Where it's like, if you come here, you're going to feel a lot better when you leave. And I do hope and I think that is true in my church for a lot of people. And I think it being in Christian community, being in worshiping community can absolutely care for us and make us feel objectively better in ways. But when that becomes the end goal of your worship or of your faith or of your walk or of your religion writ large, that was never part of the gig from the beginning. So there's a ton of, I think your question originally was like, what is like the risk? And they're actually huge. And we see that, and we see a lot. I think I saw one of the notes about like prosperity preachers, right? That if you just not only pray a lot, but give money, then God's quite literally going to make your back feel better, right?
Right.
God's quite literally going to, because that's the point, right?
It's I would say that's the, how do I want to say this? It's fast food.
Yeah.
It's fast food church.
It's cheap grace.
It's cheap. In the notes it said simplistic spirituality.
Yeah.
And it's designed, especially mega church stuff is, I think, from what I've seen online, I've never been to a mega church. It's designed to give you a rush of adrenaline and dopamine when you're there, and it feels great when you're there. And everyone's really into it. It's like going to a rock concert or like a show or like whatever, and it's all going really well and everything. Everyone's really pumped up. But then, I don't know, like when people leave those spaces, do you still think about it? Because I know that I have particularly I have a particularly great priest at my church, and he gives amazing homilies, and those amazing homilies are why I keep coming back. They're not great every week. They can't be great every week. But every once in a while, a homily will hit just right at just the right moment in your life. And those are the moments where you sit quietly on the way home in your car, or you have a frank conversation with your spouse, and you really think about like how is what I'm doing not aligning myself with what God is trying to tell me in that moment.
And I think this is not in our notes, but I have a question.
That's
Because
okay.
I also think what's interesting about churches, and all types of churches, is that they're based in community. And that is sort of the shared pain. And I'm wondering if some of where like Cybok is lacking in his theology is that he's not connecting the other people with each other.
I think that's a great point. Yep.
And I think like that is where you find the most successful churches are the ones that aren't like your priest is going to come save you, because your priest is not going to come save you. Spoiler alert. But like it's actually the community you have within each other. And I think that is what makes this very interesting, is that, and it's also like he's like, I will take your pain, but also like I'm not the end all. There's like this other person too. So it's like an interesting.
But we see that happens. You know, I mean, I think it's not hard to see that dynamic play out in churches. All well intentioned. Every player in the situation totally well intentioned, totally working out of a deep sense of faith and faithfulness to Christ and the gospel. And when a faith leader starts to see themselves as the sole arbiter of grace, right? Basically, you know, like it cannot happen. You know, like it's, and maybe not even on a power trip, but even to sort of, it's so easy for us, I think, or I'll speak for myself. It's easy for me to feel responsible for things I cannot possibly be responsible for. Because who else is going to do it, right? You know, kind of thing. And then you have to remember, I think your point, Ivy, is like, well, a lot of people do it, actually. And spoiler alert, like, God can do whatever the hell God wants, you know, like, with or without us, or in spite of us, you know. So I think he is a cautionary tale in so many ways, in a helpful one, because he's not evil. Right, Cybok is not a bad guy.
I wouldn't even say he's the villain of. I don't even say he's the villain of the story.
Not really.
He's not. There are no villains of the story. Yeah. There are no villains in the story.
Well,
there's
God.
God, yeah.
Like,
whatever
God was there.
I don't think we ever quite get an answer.
Right.
For that
and let's talk about God and false divinity for a minute. one of the things is, the famous line, like what tips everyone off to this isn't it is the famous line, excuse me, I have a question. What does God need with a starship?
It was fantastic.
And I love that scene because like, first of all, I love Bones through this entire movie. Like, Bones through this entire movie
Delightful.
makes this
So grumpy,
movie.
but I love
He
it.
is so, like, he walks up like, Jim, you don't ask God a question.
Ask God a question.
And it's one of those things where there is only one God, and I look around at, I don't know, the situation. Not that we're this podcast, and I think I might be treading into dangerous waters here, but I'm looking around at the things that people are saying that God wants in our society right now, and I'm wondering, well, I'm definitely not backing that God that you're talking about. How do we know? Not how do we know? How do we know sounds so definitive. Like how do we walk through this world following what we think a omnipotent being wants us to do and get it right?
I feel like you don't.
That is the project, right?
Right.
I mean, this is the project. You just summed up really the point of Christianity. And Ivy supplied the answer. We don't, but we still try. And this is touching now. This movie I think is there are a lot of like God themes and very easy grabs, but all it takes is just a little peel back, and it has really, really foundational theological claims that are truly the bedrock of this faith, right? So we've already gotten to the incarnation, really, really important. But now we're getting into into the topic of grace, right?
Yeah.
The point is that we don't do it. We don't do it. God does it in a sense for us in a lot of ways and with us. And again, oftentimes in spite of us, purely out of a desire to be in union with us. And us with God. And so there was the line that the being says, many faces and one voice, which I thought was really fascinating. And cycles through all these faces, and is this the face that's more agreeable to you?
Yeah.
And like all, and which really kind of to your point, Taylor, is like people can see whatever face of God they want, right? It's very, very easy to have a face of God illustrated for you that is the most agreeable to you. This happens on all points of the political spectrum. This happens, there is as much sloppy liberal theology as there is terrible, harmful, hyper-conservative theology, right? I mean, they're all, and your points, like, how do we know when we get it right?
Right.
There's just so many options. There's so many options. Different denominations have kind of different analogies for how they go about this like work and this thinking. And for us in the Episcopal Church, we often refer to what's called the three-legged stool. This is scripture, tradition, and reason. So this whole kind of like that, and so without one of those legs, the stool can't stand. Like all three have to be there all the time. Or else you're going to wobble and fall over. I think there's if I'm gonna maybe mess up, I think it's the Wesleyan quadrilateral adds in experience. I feel ambivalent about that for all the reasons we just talked about, because everyone has any number of experiences, and I not that our experience isn't important. But it's awfully subjective. And so I go back to that often, right? It's, yes, the Bible can be hard. Yes, there are parts of the Bible that are terrible, right? They're hard to read. It contradicts itself. It's difficult. And that's one of three things, right? We also employ our God-given reason and rationality to say, okay, but if this is what we hear here and this is what we hear here, we know the context. And so and then our tradition, what have we seen throughout the life of our faith as a collective be life-giving, and what have we seen that has been death-dealing, right? And how do we keep that in our consciousness and our collective memory to say, what has the tradition taught us itself? That's kind of my... I put a lot of stock in that setup in terms of trying to know, like, quote unquote, when we're getting it right, as if that's ever, I think we're not nearly as close as we often think. No. But again, that's also not the point. Christianity is not about arriving; it's about transforming, and grace is the engine for that process.
One of the things I said loudly last season, I think, was how I believe that Kirk, Spock, and McCoy are a trinity. They are the Trinity. Like these three characters working together through this story really do reflect like a real Trinity. Like Kirk is faith and has faith in humanity, of moral conviction. Spock is reason and truth seeking, and McCoy is compassion, guilt and suffering. What do you think about the symbolism of what do you guys think about the symbolism of how these guys embody the Trinity, and how it's well represented in this movie through these characters?
So this is my first time meeting them as a trio. I had never seen anything else with the three of them and their dynamic. Because I know, like, we see Spock in Strange New Worlds, we meet Kirk, but this was my first time meeting them as a trio. And I remembered what you said last season, so I, like, kind of was watching it through that lens. And I think it happened in, like, the first 5 minutes of the film.
With the camping?
Yes, the camping. Where Kirk says, I know I wasn't going to die because I know I die alone. And I was like, well, do we even need to watch the rest of the movie? We really did. There was a lot that happened after that. But I like that sentence for me, I thought was like so impressive. And then at the end, when Kirk thinks he's alone with this like false prophet and false god, and he thinks he's gonna die, and then Spock says, when then they're in that like beautiful room and having champagne, he's like, you were never gonna die because you weren't alone. And I think that one is such a like Christian thought of this community building that together, but also this idea that you need the three of them together. And I think what's interesting is that their relationship gets tested when we find out that, like, Cybok is Spock's brother, and Kirk is like, you didn't tell me. And what's interesting is that you see Bones sort of backing Spock and being like, why are you mad at him? Like, that would be absurd for someone to ask you to kill your brother. Like, what are you talking about? So I thought that dynamic was really interesting, because from purely on no facts besides what I've heard Taylor say, I thought that Bones and Spock were going to be a little more at each other's throats for most of the episode. So I found it really fascinating that the two of them seem to have this real kinship in the way that they interacted. And I feel like the two of them, part of their bond is really their combined love of Kirk. And I think that is a really interesting bond, because I can think of even like people in my own life where like we're really bonded just because we both love this other person, not because the two of us are particularly gonna go out and hang out with each other. So I just think that's sort of interesting with this idea of like needing all three together. I don't actually know if I answered a question, but
It's okay. That was really great.
thanks.
I've always loved, like I said last season, like don't give me Kirk and Spock. If you're not giving me McCoy, don't give me Kirk and Spock. I don't need them together. Their dynamic together doesn't matter. It's when Bones is in the room. Like, one of the things I love, and I laughed so hard when, like, he said it in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Like, McCoy, like, Spock says something, I forget, and McCoy, who's drunk, says, "Oh my God, I liked him better before he died."
So true.
I liked him better before he died.
And that's just such a great I don't know, like a great way to portray their relationship between Spock and McCoy. And another thing that happened that you don't know about, and I'll tell you right now, is that Spock like transfers his soul into McCoy before he dies the first time, and that so McCoy has like a little bit of Spock in him forever.
I'm sure he loves that.
He doesn't. He's very upset about it. Like the entirety of Search for Spock, he is so bullshit. Which is just McCoy's baseline. What do you think about the Trinity of Kirk, Spock, McCoy?
I'm gonna be probably a little shy about it because no subject has wrought more drama in Christianity than the Trinity.
So true.
Oh.
So true.
Say more.
In what people think and don't think about it. So yeah, Trinitarian controversies are sort of like our original beef, like with ourselves. The Trinity's tough, man. It is a mystery because it's a mystery. There are things that it is like, but there's no way for us to actually come up with a metaphor. The second you think you have a good metaphor for the Trinity is the second you have developed a new heresy. But also the Trinity, and now we get to like a third absolutely bedrock, foundational, theological basis of this faith, which is Trinitarian, right? This is what makes Christianity one of the things that makes Christianity very unique. The one thing I will say in relation to the three of them, and Ivy, you kind of pulled it up, is that in terms of Trinitarian thinking and what's important for me, what is important to always think about is that the Trinity itself is a relationship, right? The Trinity is God's relationship with God's self. We have kind of two different theologians have kind of thought of two different ways of thinking about the Trinity, kind of perspective-wise. One is what we would call like the economic Trinity, and that is referring to sort of like how the Trinity works within itself. It doesn't have a lot to do with us. It just because God is God, God loves God's self perfectly, and we share in that love, right? And we are invited into that in some way. And then there's something that we call like the immanent Trinity, and that is how the Trinity interacts with our existence, right? But I think the point that gets tied in here is that it is all relationship, all of it. What we see Jesus, we see a lot of like Jesus and the Father, right? They're a very visible duo, right? In Scripture, except for they're technically not a duo. They're the same. It makes your head want to, like your brain melt out of your ears, right? And so the relationship between the two, especially the Father and the Son, or maybe we would just say like the first and second persons of the Trinity, that the basis of that relationship is what has driven millennia of theological conflict in Christianity, whether the Son, the second person, is subordinate to the first person, whether the second person was created by the Creator, right? All these things. The answer to both of those are no, and I can't exactly explain why, sort of thing. But I think the point, getting back to like the movie though, is that I love that envelope that you mentioned, where it's like I know I die alone, and like you aren't alone, kind of thing. Is like there's no escaping that relational essence of God. Both because God refuses to be separate from God's self, and also God refuses to be separate from us. Unless we refuse to be in union with God, right? That's the free will part. Grace is always the hand is always extended with grace. Grace never gets shoved down our throats, right? We always have to accept it. It's all relationship, all of it. So I think that came up. I think, and even though it's strained and it's there's something you can sense between the three of them. There's something unbreakable between the three of them, and that actually what pours out from that relationship of the three of them affects everyone around them, And that's actually, I think that is a good metaphor of how we can think about both the economic and like the immanent Trinity too.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I guess I paid attention at least one day.
Yeah.
One day in class.
Jeez. It's almost like you went to school for this.
It's almost like I, spent no, I won't say the other word. Several years. Actually, quick plug though. If people are interested in hearing, it is not as boring and terrible as it sounds, as it's about to sound.
That's a great lead in. Like, I am here for
There's
it.
a fantastic podcast put out to some degree by the church. It's by Earth and Altar, which is a magazine that's related to the Episcopal Church. It's called The Road to Nicaea. I'm blanking on the... I hope he doesn't. He's not going to listen to this.
No one listens.
Yeah, he does. He's an Episcopal priest, but very, very, very well read, and I did a lot of studying on this. And he has this like 30+ part series on all of the events that led to the Council of Nicaea, where we got the Nicene Creed, which is our first and foundational statement of faith, where all of this stuff gets and like all of the.
Wait, there was a council that wrote it?
Oh yes,
we
had 7 big ones.
It's Council of Wizards. And,
7 big ones. Nicaea was the one that established that creed, and were the the leaders of the church at the time just had to make some definitive decisions on who's this Jesus person, how does it work with the other two, it's like, so that is what really codified our Trinitarian theology. He does a fantastic job. It's funny, it's quippy, it's very, very interesting. I would definitely recommend it.
What came first, the Apostles' Creed or the Nicene Creed?
Someone's probably going to correct me. I don't think we exactly know.
Okay.
I would imagine probably the Nicene Creed, but since it's called the Apostles' Creed, some people think that kind of came from, but...
it's bold of you to say.
Yeah.
It's been decided here. We look forward to your letters.
Yeah, I might be like, here we go. And I was like, I don't know. I might be wrong.
So, final takeaways, guys, on the movie. I mean, because Drake watched the wrong movie 2 weeks ago, I watched this movie 3 times in the span of a month and a half. Like, I watched when Drake said he wanted to do it, or agreed to do it, because I was like, hey, you should do this. He's like, yeah, I guess I will. I watched it, and then I watched it the night before we were going to record the first time. Then I watched it last night, and it doesn't get better with rewatches. I won't say that. I won't say like you pick up more things. I think the thing you do pick up more in this movie on a rewatch, even if you're watching it with a theological mindset, is just like how much shade Bones is throwing at Spock the entire time. Yeah. Like it is like one insult after another, and they are all super cutting and super like they're just so good, and it's just a great example of their relationship. But I've always liked this movie for its theological undertones, and this has always been, whenever I thought I want to start a podcast or I want to do interviews. Sorry, this is before podcasts were even a thing. I said I would love to sit down with priests and interview them about media that I like, and this movie has always been on my list of something to talk about. Talk to a clergy person about. So I'm really happy that we were able to sit down today and have this conversation.
Yeah, it was great. I hadn't seen it before. I'm very behind on the older movies, and it's very rare for me to like actively emote while I watch movies. Yeah. Like I don't tend to like laugh out loud a lot. I don't cry a lot. I don't even really like acknowledge. It's probably not a good thing. I can't imagine it's probably a good quality of mine. But several times when I watched it, I went, just kind of one of those, like, that's really interesting. I think it does a really, really great job, generally speaking, just about treating the reality of just this reality that if we are going to put our faith in something bigger than us, if we are going to live a life insofar and believe that the ultimate way to live our life requires us to put our faith in something that is not us and that is in fact bigger and different than we are, that is necessarily going to be, I think we said earlier, like a quest, right? Mm-hmm. It is going to be a process, a journey, an experience. And I loved, we talked about it just a little bit when, Kirk says, like, I have a question. And, Bones is like, you don't ask God questions. That's completely untrue. People ask God questions all the time. It's all over Scripture. Mm-hmm. I think God expects us to ask questions. Questions are not bad. It does not. There's no dialectic between faith and assuredness, right? That is not that. I'm not the first to say it, but the opposite of faith is not doubt. The opposite of faith is actually certainty, right? Mm-hmm. We don't need. If you're certain, you don't need faith, right? Yeah. And so
that's like Cybok's problem.
Exactly.
He's certain.
He's certain, and he wants to be certain. And faith does not work in a frame of certainty. But what's really awesome about God is that God fills in those gaps, and gives us this foundation where we can step out, on kind of this ledge of faith and trust that even if we don't get everything, even if we can't figure out the Trinity, even if we can't, figure out how grace works or whatever, why we suffer, what's the point of pain, all of these big questions that some people have claimed to answer and no one has. The safety net is always there, no matter what, which is why I'm a believer, I peddle this stuff because I think it works, Mm-hmm. So I think it's just I think the movie is definitely worth a watch, even if you're not a Star Trek person. But if you're a person of faith, I think it is definitely worth an hour and a half, 45 minutes of your life. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What you, Ivy?
Yeah, I liked it. The one thing that I wrote down that I thought really did hit me was that they landed on that planet and I was like, this was the best your budget could give. I was like, because
this looks like Kansas.
Yeah, I was like, well, I think I wrote down I thought there would be more flowers in this Garden of Eden.
Well, you know what they say? What they say is that fantasy is the forest outside of Vancouver.
Okay.
Sci-fi is the rock quarry outside of Vancouver.
That's actually probably very accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's where a lot of our TV shows are made right now and movies.
Vancouver, yeah.
But anyway, sorry to
interrupt. All that stuff comes out of Vancouver. No, I found this movie really fascinating and fun. Because I didn't know most of these characters, and so I really enjoyed meeting Scotty. He's a delight. And seeing that sort of very famous trio in so many different ways. I also think it just reaffirms my faith that anyone can join a cult by accident, and that it's actually very easy to be persuaded. Because I feel most people are oh, I'd never join a cult, I'm better than that. And it's no. You find the right vein to hit on the right person at the right time.
Plot twist, you're already in one.
You're already in, yeah. No, but I think that's something that, and we didn't really talk about the allure of cults and how that also to me was a very large part of this. And as someone who enjoys watching documentary on cults as well,
cult documentaries are so cool.
They're
fantastic.
Amazing and wild, and I think that it's very easy when you're watching them to be I would never do that, or this is so clearly all these red herrings and all these things. But I do think that the idea of a cult just shows our desperation for wanting community and love, and that is the most human thing and the most Christian thing at the same time.
That's why so many of them pass as Christian communities, yes. Right? And then exactly. And then very much wade into this other place. I mean, the thing this is a big statement to make, but just from the hip, I think the thing that ties together so many of those groups that I have seen or read about goes back to that question about pain, right? I think all of them claim to offer a way out of pain. And I think that there's that deep need for community and everything, but there's also this just deep, almost just irrefutable desire to do something with our pain. And if someone is telling you they not only can do something with it, but they can make it go away as long as you do exactly what they say, that's pretty hard to push up against, right?
Yeah.
So I think that again shows that you know, the importance of sticking to some of these fundamentals, right, in Christian theology, about things like pain, like that God came into pain, like not to avoid it or push it aside, but to transform it. It's too valuable in a way, and I think that's where Kirk really is. You know, it's like, I need my pain. You know, it's part of what makes me who I am. So I think, you're spot on there. We probably should do an episode on cults at some point. That would be really fun.
Oh my God,
Yes. Drake, really quick.
Yeah.
If there was one disciple who would have said to Jesus after he resurrected, I liked him better before he died, which disciple would that have been?
My gut says Thomas.
Bang.
Oh, see, I was gonna say Peter. That boy was sassier than people give him credit for.
Oh, Peter's very sassy. Yes. No, I need to think about why, but I think it just Thomas's reaction to the resurrection and things like that. You know, I think it's just like Thomas wanted to be certain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this really puts a wrench in all of that. And so that was my guess. I saw that question.
Okay.
Yeah. Peter though.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with Peter. I think that but I think Peter's saying it in like a tongue-in-cheek way. Like, I think Thomas is saying it in like a straight up, I think I actually did like him better before he died. And I think Peter is saying it in like a fun, joking way with your friends of like, he was funnier before that. So I think it's the intention of how they're saying it.
So you're saying Peter is the Bones McCoy?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with that statement too.
So who's the Kirk? Because, I mean, Jesus is obviously Spock, because who would be the Kirk of the disciples? Would it? Jesus is Spock because Spock literally died and came back to life.
Yeah.
And he sacrificed himself for the ship. And
Okay, fine. I'm like, but I also think, this is going to be like a whole other thing, but I do think that you could make the argument that, like, is Spock, like, if you just look at that, would Spock be more of like a Judas character? Sorry.
I think because I assigned Thomas, I'm actually going to say I would equate Kirk with Peter, as the kind of reckless, hot-headed, the one who's going to run in and then ask questions later, sort of thing. That was very Peter.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have to be one or the other either.
oh yeah, no, this is just like a fun little.
Yeah. I've got a soft spot for both Peter and Thomas.
I love Thomas. Poor dude.
Yeah,
It's a bad
it's
rap.
a terrible rap. The poor guy was just brokenhearted, man. Like he couldn't. His heart was too broken to believe, But then he did.
He did.
It's kind of graphic, but he got the picture.
He got there. He was there. Well, then who's Mary Magdalene in this whole...
Ahura, duh.
Yeah.
Ahura, there we go.
Clearly,
There we
it's
go.
the only lady on the show. So.
Oh my gosh, the scene when she's dancing cracked me up.
Oh my God,
She's
it's so
so
bad.
funny.
She's so cool.
I do like in Strange New Worlds how they're because in this film they kind of give like the hint that Scotty and Ahura are like an item, and like in Strange
They're
New
not?
Worlds, not until this movie. And in Strange New Worlds they did a thing where like Scotty comes up and he says something like really excited to her. And she's like, "Oh my God, I'll help you figure this out." And as he walks away, she kind of gives him like a little like, "Hey, I never really noticed Scotty before."
That's so funny. I love it.
But yeah, anyway, so that's all I got for this episode, guys. I guess we'll end it like we always do. Drake. Actually, I had one more question for you, Drake.
Oh, no.
What's with the? I've noticed this in clergy emails recently. The pluses at the end of clergy's
I
names.
told you what the pluses
Yes,
were.
we didn't say it on mic, so now we're.
Oh.
What do you think they are?
Oh, it's just if you don't want to put reverend or something, it's like an MD.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
And if you're a bishop, it goes in front of your name.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh wow. Okay, I'll have to check.
I'll have to fix my Christmas card next year.
I'll have to check Bishop Snisley's
No, that
signature.
man writes his whole thing out, and it's saved. There's
It goes
no
out.
way.
Bishop Knisley's signature goes like off the side of my screen. That's how long it is.
He's a very accomplished person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tend to think of it as I'm not really one for I'm not particularly tied to honorifics, so I don't particularly need people to call me by any sort of title, father or rev or anything like that. But I do find there are times when I'm writing or corresponding with people where my office is important. Like not to over and against, but it's like when you're occupying and you're speaking specifically from that place. Like, of course, I'm always a priest, even when I'm not, but when I'm, speaking on behalf of my church, or or it's just, it's just it's kind of a way to, it's, if anything, it's for me, it's to remind me, that I'm not just speaking as me, I'm speaking on behalf of a lot of things, and I need to probably be mindful of that. But I do get lazy sometimes and just put D+. And then my organist's name is Diana, and so she always ends her emails D-.
That's hilarious.
That's so good. So speaking of your office and where you go, if someone wants to see you, Drake, on a Sunday, where would they go?
Or a Saturday, as we learned today.
Or a Saturday.
Oh, sometimes there are Saturdays. Yes. So I am the vicar, which is just a funny way to say priest in charge of St. Augustine's Church. That's down in Kingston. That's on the campus of URI, and so because of that, I also serve as the chaplain, the Episcopal chaplain to the University of Rhode Island. So our services are 9:30 on Sunday mornings is a traditional worship service. I also do a service for students Tuesday evenings at 6. That includes a dinner. And if you're ever up at the Episcopal Conference Center, I do some work up there too, all year long. So come and see us. Any of those places. We'll be happy to have you.
Great. We look forward to another great season of Tea Time Theology.
I'm going there to see my Father. I'm going there no more to roam. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going over home. I'm going there to see my Savior, to sing His praise forevermore. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going over home.
Thank you for listening to Tea Time Theology, a ministry of St. John's Cathedral in Rhode Island. We would like to thank our producers, Ivy Swinsky and Taylor Wilkie. Special thanks to Mariah Akande and David Hines for this season's music. Additionally, we would like to thank our sponsor, the Episcopal Diocese of Rhode Island, and the Right Reverend Nicholas Knisley, as well as our guests today. Follow us at Tea Time Theology on all social medias.